Okay, we got a connection. Woohoo! Okay, guys, hi, hello, hello, hello. I'm so excited to bring you guys this conversation today with our cats of seed. Really, let me just get her on the line here. Yes, that's seed. That's what we need. Okay, all right. She's going to be getting on with us real quick here. And I'm so excited to talk to you guys about the microbiome. It's my favorite science. Woo! I'm so excited. Okay. Hi, everybody. Where are we coming from? Let's see. We're waiting for seed still. Okay. What do you guys, what's going on? Where are you calling from? I love you guys too. Okay, I'll talk to you guys first. Okay. Let me think about a couple of things. Where are you guys from? Argentina. Woohoo! Hi, guys. I can't see anything well with my glasses on anymore. It's this thing that I'm just having to live with. I honestly didn't think it was going to be something that would happen to me, but it did. Tennessee, okay. And the Philippines. Oh, lumpia is my favorite. I love lumpia. And let's see, Ecuador, England. Oh yeah, UK, Japan, of course, we know that. Oh, are you? Let's see. Where did you? Let me see. There was a link. Let's see. Seed is what I have for you to come on to see me. Let's see. Requests. You guys, this is what happens. I thought, did I lose connection? Did I lose? Here, let me see. At seed. I'm not getting you, Ara. Where are we? Okay, guys, I'm going to come back to you and talk with you for a second so that I can see where it's at. Request to be in your. Hi, guys. Everybody from Turkey. Okay. I know we're going to have some questions too. I'm going to see where we are at. How come it's not coming up for seed? You guys, technology hates me. It's literally the worst. Okay. Well, the microbiome, you guys, is what we're going to be talking about today. And we are very much excited about this conversation because it happens to be one of the most important aspects of our, let me see, aspects of our well-being. Our well-being has everything to do with our microbiome. And this is a new science only in the last few, well, it's been around for a long time, but the real sort of nitty gritty of the understanding that we have of the microbiome, what is this not working? Is just kind of, there we go, add. Whew, I hope this works because I want Ara to tell this story. This is hers. Hi, guys. There you are. How are you? Oh my goodness. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
Oh, I know what it's my fault. I actually requested it from my personal account and I didn't mean it. That was a mistake.
There you go. I was looking for your account as well. Guys, this is our Katz. We're so excited about having her. She's a badass. You guys have no idea what this woman has accomplished and what gifts she's bringing to the world at this very moment. First off, I just wanted to say cheers to you. Where are you at? You're in LA?
Oh, yeah, I'm in LA.
Perfect. And are you quarantining with your family? Cheers.
I am with my 4-year-old and we're and my husband and trying to run 2 startups from home and it's been
amazing.
It's been super interesting.
super Zoomy. You're doing a lot of Zoom meetings.
I've never looked at myself so many times ever.
It's so aggressive. What is why are they doing this?
I
What is
don't
happening?
know. Joking today that like our new lives is just like Hollywood Squares.
But you know what I do love is that I can run in and out of my meetings and
Yes.
like go take care of stuff in the
Yes.
house and get
Oh, yeah.
things. I literally have a pile of sweaters that I like keep in this room,
Yes.
that
Yep.
I like take my spittle like t-shirt that has like, you know, baby spit all over it and like take that off really quick and throw on the sweater, you know?
Yep. No, it's really like amazing to just be dressed from like here up.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like business on top, quarantine on the
Yeah.
bottom.
Yeah. It's basically,
Um,
yeah. I've never been able to wear like leggings and like Birkenstocks and like socks pulled up over every day of my life. Yeah.
you
My,
look
my,
very professional though right now.
yeah,
So
my husband calls, my husband, calls it, it basically like quarantine wardrobe is like birth control.
totally. Oh, for sure. I have like these 5 dresses that I bought, like the same print, the same dress
Yeah.
that I just like wear every single day. And because I'm just like, I use it as a towel. It's like
Yeah.
this cotton,
Great.
you know,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I wipe shit off with it. By the end of the day, I just throw it in the wash and like put the next one on the next day.
And actually, it's something because we live in Venice and we left we left Venice like probably I think maybe seven weeks ago now. But I only actually thought we were going for like a you know like just a few, really just like a week or so. And so it's been interesting to like just live like one of those like you know Marie Kondo experiments where when you just have pairs of leggings and 3 sports bras and like 4 t-shirts and a pair of sweatpants and like
Absolutely.
a great skin, like you realize it's like kind of all you need. Yeah,
That's
that's
all
kind
you need.
of,
It's it.
yeah.
So
So
listen, we have such a great group of people who are from all over the world, from
I
Brazil. They see all of these amazing places. Like we are joined by the world at the moment. And I was just saying to everybody as I was trying to get you on, it's that uh, this is my favorite science. I love the microbiome. That's how we met, is
yeah.
by just my love for it, and the fact that in your love for it and that you built a company around it. And I am so excited to introduce not just Seed, which is the probiotic that you've
Yes.
created,
Yeah.
but also just to a lot of our viewers, maybe for the first time hearing about what the microbiome is
Yeah.
and how important it is to us and our well-being.
Yes.
So, first off, tell us a little bit about first what Seed is and how it came about.
Sure. And I would also just note that one of the reasons we were so equally excited about you was that in your book, you know, I mean, look, there's a lot of gut making, and we'll get into that. And obviously a lot of people talk about microbiome and probiotics and gut health in all kinds of ways. But in your book, before we officially met, when we had looked in the book, you know, you had actually interviewed one of the most prominent scientists in this field,
Martin Blazer.
yeah, and Mr. Marty Blazer, who actually we just interviewed recently on a webinar, and he's one of our advisors. And we were like, oh, this.
We went to the source.
So we were always like super impressed with that. But Seed, as you asked, so Seed Health is kind of our company. We focus entirely on microbes, so mostly bacteria, and we look at and pioneer all kinds of applications of how we can use bacteria for human and environmental health. On the human side, that looks like everything, and we'll talk about it from probiotics, but not just kind of ingesting probiotics, but we'll, you know, for different ecosystems of the body, so skin, the mouth, the oral microbiome, and then of
Because
course
we have like 38 trillion microbes on our body on the inside and the
and
outside that we are symbiotic with. We cannot
yeah,
live without. We cannot exist without all these microbes that we're constantly trying to kill.
yeah. Um, Despite one specific microbe tearing up our world right now, which
Right.
I qualify as, most of them are actually good. And many actually looked at to think about how you're going to solve really big problems in human health, looking at it from a preventive health perspective, but then also environmental. So we really work across all different areas, as we will talk about, certainly in probiotics, but in women's health, a therapeutic for urinary tract infections,
Mm-hmm.
vaginosis, preterm birth, like That's the vaginal microbiome, which we talk about vaginas, which we talk about all the time at
Which
Seed.
women have and men don't.
Yes,
but men contribute to.
that is correct. And so as we can talk about, also are contribute to also disrupting that ecosystem. And so anyway, so we can talk more about that, and then also in the environmental side, we look at areas where like, and I know you recently interviewed Beekeepers Naturals founder. We have a probiotic for honeybees, which actually increases their immune resistance to pesticides. We know that like bees dying is a really bad thing.
Yeah.
So look at microbes for things like soil health. There's a soil microbiome. We look at microbes for thinking about the future of plastic, both like making new materials. Microbes actually can make new materials, but also how microbes will break down plastic. So there's a lot of research happening in that area. That happens under Seed Labs, which is where we do our environmental work. So
Amazing. All of that. Microbes are, I one of the things that I always say to people about microbes, why this sort of idea that we know that they exist, but we're only just now kind of getting involved with them, is because our science are finally able to see deeper inside of ourselves than we've ever been able to.
yeah.
And so being this, all of the science that you're talking about, all these microbes are before we kind of knew they existed, but now we're like intimately learning about what they do and how they function and their importance.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell everybody about how Seed came about, how you came up with it?
So I've kind of serial entrepreneur and built a number of companies, very much like in tech and consumer. Previous to that, worked very much in like media, design, storytelling. But really, like truthfully, like after, and have always been a big science nerd. I am not the person who oversees like all of our science and R&D. Raja, my co-founder, who you've met, who's like
Of course.
bizarrely smart human being, drives all of that. But really, like my pivot to kind of finally, I think as we know, like most of our life decisions are not just like one moment; they're kind of the culmination of so many things that happen in our lives. But I was running and had co-founded a tech company in New York, and really just honestly, burning myself out, going, coast to coast, and trying to run a company, living in LA, in New York, and it was a mobile commerce company, and I had a miscarriage. And I think it was just actually very grateful for miscarriages. We can talk about how beautiful that biology is. And so it wasn't one of the like so sad of the miscarriage as much as it was just like a really existential moment in my life that I was like, whatever I do next, I know how to build companies, I know how to build tech, I know how to raise money. It's like, what are you going to do with all that? Like, how do you nudge the world forward every day, which is kind of how we think about the work we do at Seed. And really, I knew that health and I got pregnant very shortly after that. But I think there's kind of two ways women find their way to their bodies, particularly like learning anything about them. Because for the most part, you can ask incredible rooms of humans who are super educated. You ask them like very simple things like, how does digestion work? How does your period work? And like very, very few people actually know. And I think I've always been curious, like why we believe so much in marketing.
Right.
Like learning some basic biology, and then your bullshit radar can be like so well honed, and like you just won't buy shit if you understand how it works. So
well, we also live in a world where we nowadays that we allow our marketing to educate us, which is not how it should work. Marketing is not an education; it's a selling of a product.
Correct. And Google isn't always, like, as we are finding now during COVID, the most reliable source of information. So neither is social media. So I think I'd always been so curious about like why we just kind of like give our agency over our bodies to like all these other like mostly products.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's kind of two ways, and particularly as a woman, but I think for everybody, you kind of find your way to your body. And like for women, it's pregnancy or pathology. You get sick or knocked up, and then you like, and it's usually when something goes wrong. And so when I was pregnant, of course, like the internet knows you're pregnant. So like you just start getting, all of this information, lots of unsolicited advice from people that you don't necessarily ask for.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that I wanted to do something that would nudge the world forward, that that was going to be a totally new lens. Like if it was going to be in health, and I really knew I always wanted to be in the body. My mom died when I was 17, and I think ever since going through that experience early, like I just kind of always felt like I knew I wanted biology, health in some way. And I had kind of watched a lot of the noise start, and of course, very good noise. I think the wellness industry has certainly attuned people to like caring about their bodies and being conscious of them. And so I feel like the consciousness is now there, and I'm like, okay, but what do you do with it? And I felt that there was just so much confusion, so much sensationalization, hyperbolization of like claims, and this does this, and this detoxes this, and this does this. And look, everyone has to find their way to, health in some ways.
Sure.
Those things, but it wouldn't be what I want to put out in the world. And so I felt like it had to be like, the cool thing in tech is like you could be at the beginning of stuff, like at the very beginning of things, or like and I wanted to be in a field that like every day I'd wake up and you were like chasing it. Like it would always be evolving, like AI, machine learning, like just things that are really like game changing. And the microbiome was just that thing where I was like, microbes, the research is always never going to end.
No.
And we're only going to continue to realize more and more.
It's changing constantly. I mean,
Yeah,
when we wrote the body book, that was nobody knew what the microbiome was.
exactly.
We like literally, it was one of those things when I would get asked always when the book came out, what was the favorite thing you learned about researching the book? And I was like, the microbiome, hands down. It's the most incredible science that's happening right now. And it's just happening exponentially. It's happening so quickly. And we're learning so much constantly about what the microbiome is and what it does.
Yeah.
And I think that's, like you said, that's going to be an ever changing and applicable, right? So now we can apply things that we didn't know we could apply for our well-being.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that with you, it was with your breastfeeding, your first child, that brought that into your consciousness as far as like what you could apply.
And really, and to make a very much longer story short, 3 months into breastfeeding, couldn't supply all my son's breast milk. And for someone who's like spent a lot of time looking at this space, you know that breast milk is like basically the fertilizer for an infant's microbiome, and it's kind of what forms their immune and GI system. And it was just obviously somewhat demoralizing, but also really like was an exception for saying, okay, well, we're going to start with reinventing infant formula from a microbiome perspective. Surprised how little science goes into a lot of formulas that consider the microbiome.
Well, they think of nutrients in formulas. Correct. They're not really looking about, they're delivering the micro and the macro, and they're not looking at like the microbe, which is the other aspect of it.
Exactly. And so that was really what started it. And then we realized that there was so much more opportunity as we started kind of connecting the dots and with a lot of the scientists, like Marty being, certainly one of them that and realized that there was a much bigger opportunity to really think about, how were microbes going to play a role in like how we brush our teeth, how we think about like taking care of our skin. Obviously things like infant formula, and then, other areas that were around environmental health. And then the brand was really built out of that. The reason that we're called Seed is because seeding, as you from your work with Marty and also from his wife, Gloria, is the process by which a baby first gets their microbes. Mostly the mother load kind of comes at birth. But then after that, they start acquiring them from the environment as well. So that's kind of how we got our name and how we got started.
And also the mother's breast milk. That's why when you stopped breastfeeding, you were concerned about how your son was. You have a son, right? I was sorry. I'm only she right now.
Yeah.
Your son was going to get his microbiome built up, not just from external, but up from what you produce as a mother.
Yeah.
So let's talk about seeding, the gut, and how important that is.
Yeah.
And what we sort of in this day and age right now in, sort of the wellness space, we have this sort of like gut mania where
Yeah.
And that's your guys' term, which I really, really, really love your guys' Instagram. It's so fantastic, and your website. But the Instagram, the series that your guys are doing right now with your chapters, and
Yes.
anybody who wants to really, really understand what we're talking about, what you
Yeah.
have to do is you have to go to their Instagram page at Seed, and
Mhm.
you have to look at their chat. They have chapters of basically walking you through what the microbiome is, and it's so informative. And the one chapter 4, that really kind of gives you everybody the understanding of sort of what's happening right now as far as like, what people are purchasing or what they're consuming to help build their microbiome isn't necessarily it's not necessarily a probiotic.
Yeah.
Right, it is, but it doesn't affect your actual microbiome when you consume it for so many different reasons. And I'll let you go ahead and talk about those.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Probiotics, obviously, like, and well, let's start with what you said earlier, which is that you have 38 trillion microbes in and on your body. That's in pretty much every surface that touches the environment. So like there's even like an optical microbiome, there's a nasal microbiome, an oral microbiome, skin microbiome, vaginal microbiome, as we talked about. But majority of them, and the reason there is so much gut
There's
made,
even a scrotum
yeah,
microbiome.
correct. That's just to make this as inclusive as possible.
Every
Yeah,
part's got
every,
its own microbiome.
there's one thing. It's kind of like everybody poops. Like everyone's got a microbiome.
Exactly.
And so I
Well,
wish,
it is your microbiome.
yeah. So, but the majority, the reason there is so much gut mania is that like a majority of these microbes do reside in your gut. And so there's a lot of misconceptions though, like about probiotics, like the idea that you're kind of like missing something. And then by like taking probiotics, like you're putting them back. And it's not exactly kind of how they work. They're actually kind of transient microbes that as they travel through your body, they're doing things, but they don't stick around. They don't necessarily stick around that long.
Mhm.
Kind of
Their
not,
lifespan is like if
they're
they don't get what they need to
yeah,
live, they die off. If they get too much of something, they die off.
yeah. But it's also, but really like probiotics are just not intended to, they're not intended to stick around. They're intended to move through your body and do things
Right.
with other microbes, and they interact with other human cells.
One of the things that I really loved about what I learned from you guys when I first started working with you, which was I think at the time that you told me, it was sort of like and what you guys built your probiotics off is strain specific.
Yes, yes. And that's the other thing, which is like really understanding that, like, I think people kind of talk about probiotics like it's like I like books. It's like I take my, like, there's so much specificity. There's thousands of different strains of bacteria. And so, real specificity on exactly what strains. So, for example, very specific strains of the same species can do wild different things in the body. So, like, the specificity of the strain, and then also the dosage that the strain was like, if it was studied clinical research, a big loophole that happens when you go by probiotics is that they're not using the dosage that was studied in the human clinical studies. So say they take a strain and then they'll say, oh, we have the strain that does this. But it doesn't mean that it's the correct amount. It sometimes doesn't mean that they often don't even say that what strain it is on the label. And then
Right.
you don't, a lot of times they don't even have the correct amount of it. And that's before you get into some of the like really details of like how was it fermented, what was the pH, what was the medium that was used, is it the same
Mm-hmm.
exact conditions as was used in the trial. And so it's just interesting, like there's a lot of loopholes, and I think a lot of companies take advantage of what people don't know about the space. And then of course that prompts another question, which is like what even constitutes a probiotic.
Mm-hmm.
There's very, very specific scientific definition of the term probiotic that was offered by the UN and WHO. And a lot of, like that, if you follow that definition, things like kimchi and kombucha wouldn't really be probiotics.
Right. So that's an interesting thing. So like there's several reasons why the kombucha and like kimchi, they're like kimchi they can contribute to your microbiome in a way. Like the kimchi is a cabbage, it's fermented, it's
Yeah.
breaking down that
Yeah,
becomes more of a prebiotic, right? It gives the fuel for the microbes that live in your stomach already or your digestive tract to like utilize that for themselves.
yeah,
But it doesn't necessarily deliver a probiotic to it. Another aspect of probiotics is whether or not they can pass through the gastric juices that like your in your stomach, if they can
yeah,
survive and get through that, because our stomach, the acid is meant to just decompose, like just disintegrate whatever
yeah,
goes into it. So they have to get those microbes. We have microbes in the stomach, but the
yeah,
bulk of what the microbes you're talking about in the microbiome is throughout our entire digestive tract, through our small, large, and colon,
yeah,
small intestines, large intestine, colon, so that we have that those by to get those microbes or prebiotics
yeah,
to that part of your digestive system. It has to get through that, and seed actually has a capsule that gets it past the stomach
yeah,
acid into the digestive tract, which I think is incredible. And
yeah.
so most probiotics go down and they don't even make it into the digestive tract.
Yeah, I'd say many go. So to speak to a couple of things, so many go in, and if they're not, they're already not in the right dose. So you have so much die off already, like just in the stomach. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so yes, there's a tremendous amount of die off, like just through the GI system. And then the capsule that we have actually, it puts a probiotic inside of a prebiotic capsule. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and we have incredible data. Actually, it does a few things. One of the things that people also sometimes don't consider is the temperature variability when something shifts. You so there's like a lot of places in the world where it's very hot, for example. So if you think about it, the same technology that gets the capsule to the colon allows it to survive digestion, which is a very tumultuous process. To your point, stomach most acidic, and that's where a lot of microbes do die off.
Mm-hmm.
But then also allows us to really ensure stability for particularly to people who are in like hotter areas,
Mm-hmm.
um, where it might kind of sit in a like a back of a truck, for example, for a while. So there's
Because they have to be alive to work inside of you. They can't be dead microbes. They have to be
yeah,
alive. Like they have to be
yeah.
alive.
And the two things I was going to say, which, and this is where like I become the worst salesperson, but are the most scientifically integrous, is that yes, we do believe that survivability is very important. I have to say that there is even research that dead microbes can signal to other microbes. No, I don't think that's maybe at scale across every single strain, and certainly it's research that is starting. But just to be as scientifically integrous as possible, it would be unscientific to say that just because something is dead, there's some evidence to believe that it
Right.
potentially have an impact at some point, and with specific strains under specific conditions and specific endpoints. And then the second thing is that, a lot of clinical research is not done with our capsule and still has a positive outcome in specific dosages. And so just again, to be as scientifically integrous as possible, we believe in, and I will sell our product all day, but a lot of clinical research is done with specific strains and has positive, statistically significant outcomes, and isn't done in our capsule. And so we do believe it is incredibly important. It confers value for a number of other reasons, but it doesn't mean that like anything that's not in our capsule also can't be potentially.
Absolutely. But it's about what you're trying to achieve,
Yeah,
right? So if you're trying to get more in, I think that
yeah,
the capsule definitely helps deliver that. And also one of the things that you guys said was that anything that has to be refrigerated is likely not to be able to make it and live through the process of digestion.
yep,
And so because if it can't live outside of a refrigerator, how's it going to live inside of a body
yeah,
that's not the same temperature of a
yeah,
refrigerator?
yeah.
If it
Like,
loses its stability and it dies off outside of a refrigerator, it's not going to work in the body.
yeah, I think the whole refrigeration idea, like that people have kind of anchored into, which is like if it's refrigerated, it must be kind of fresher and better, just is not is just not it's not the same across, it's a big generalization. It's a little bit of marketing. We don't I don't think a lot of people have a lot of the data that we have on like stability.
Mhm.
Um, we actually do this crazy test in a system called Chime, which is like the simulation of the human gut. So we actually know exactly how many microbes, like at every stage of digestion, are dying off even a little bit, or where they're delivered to. And I just think a lot, yeah, and we have kind of really interesting heat stability data too. So I think a lot of the companies also are just not maybe as transparent as about some of it. But again, as I said, it doesn't mean that some of them can't be very effective.
Sure, absolutely. Look, I've been taking probiotics. I started taking acidophilus when I was 16, 17.
I remember
Like,
you told
just I have no idea what. I was just like, acidophilus, I need it. And
Yep.
I started, and I would just take it every single day. Um,
Yep.
and so there was another thing that I wanted to see. Let me put my glasses on. Hold on a second so I can see. Oh, there you are.
Trying
I with
honest,
that.
I have so much new empathy for you as a celebrity. Like I have seen every like I the variability of of comments and
Oh
just
yeah.
what you it's I mean of experience like about your like yeah it's
Welcome to my world.
like
I love being able to see where people are calling in from or
yeah
watching in, and I am so grateful for all of you people, all of the the people that take the time to watch and who are enthusiastic about being
yeah
present. And I love everybody for your continued support, and also just being able to like bring something like this to everyone so that they could really, this to me is like the most important
yeah
well-being science there is, you guys. Like honestly, this is going to be, as the research and the knowledge builds about the microbiome, this is what's going to be our future in all well-being, how they treat every single disease, every single, from mental health, which they already do use probiotics to microbes to help with depression and with autism. There's all kinds of systemic, the systemic sort of
mhm,
well-being and illnesses that is
yep,
being treated with it, and irritable bowel,
mhm,
Crohn's,
yep
all of these diseases that are plaguing our country, specifically in America, but all over the world. Microbes, it all is a balance. It all comes from our imbalance of microbes.
yep
And so to be able to share this with everybody who shows up to listen, I really appreciate it, even if they're not necessarily here to hear it.
all right
um,
what
I
we
just want to let you guys know.
yeah we say at Seed so meet them where they are, which is like sometimes you have to create different doors for people for people to walk through.
Yeah,
um
absolutely. Absolutely. Somebody I saw, I think what I saw was somebody asked something about soaps on our skin,
mm.
whether or not that, soaps mess up or kills our microbiome.
So certain preservatives absolutely disrupt the skin microbiome. And I can actually, after, if you would like, we can kind of send you, if you would like to post for
Mm-hmm.
anyone asking, we can send you a few ingredients that are actually from cleansers, what they call surfactant,
Very
um,
cool.
the skin microbiome. We're actually very deep in a lot of our skin R&D right now.
Oh, good.
So it's very fine for us. Yeah. Somebody also asked, I don't know if we can kind of work it in,
Oh,
but they
yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
what I saw a comment go through that said, or a question that said, what disrupts our microbiome? And it's the same for everyone. So I'd be happy to kind of do, and I'm sure you know a few too.
Absolutely. Somebody asked also if they could get it in Europe.
Yes, we ship to 44 countries.
Ah, that's amazing. I love are your one of them, because there's at least 44 countries on this right now, which is
Yeah.
amazing. Let's see. Oh, let's talk about women's health. What's the future? What are we looking at? What can we be asking or looking forward to in women's health with microbes?
It's Well, let's start with you have a vaginal microbiome. So there's a very specific ecosystem that works very differently than the. So if you think like the most reductive way to talk about to think about this is like the gut. One of the things that we know is a marker of a healthy gut is diversity. So think like lush rainforest.
Mm.
The vagina, you don't want diversity. You want it dominated by like a single bacterium. So that in itself just shows you like how fundamentally different those are. And we know that the vaginal microbiome is incredibly important. Like the microbes in our vagina are incredibly important for like regulating pH, as an example, and just maintaining and obviously not making it a hospitable environment for pathogens. Like for example, what causes like a UTI, or the dysbiosis, which means just kind of the out of balanceness of that ecosystem that
Mhm.
causes E. But it's also markers that make you more susceptible to very specific STIs. So we know that now that and actually the scientist that we work with on all of our women's health work, he just published the most comprehensive gene catalog of the vagina of the vaginal microbiome. That's kind of like the equivalent of like, do you remember when like the human genome was like sequenced for
Yeah.
the?
Yeah.
It's like for women's health, it's like the equivalent of that.
Right.
Obviously, it's the vagina and it's women's health, so that people don't care as care as much. But it
It's so fucked up, but it's true.
but it was a real like women's health and what it will mean. Like just to put it in perspective, something like UTI, 50% of women in the world get a UTI, urinary tract. It's the leading reason that people a bleeding infection that's diagnosed in the United States every year, about 10 million women, 150 people, 150 million like globally. 35 over 30% of those people have a recurrent urinary tract infection, and there is currently under the FDA not one that's recognized.
Wait, say that last part again because it cut out.
It's considered an unmet medical need. There's no primary standard of care. So what happens is women get in basically like antibiotic cycles over antibiotic cycles.
Which is the worst thing because antibiotics kill microbes, good and bad,
Yeah,
bad and good,
correct.
right?
Very indiscriminating. Now, granted, antibiotics will save your life in the right moment, so it's not like they're all bad. But as you know
Right.
from Marty's work, like that those cycles have other downstream effects, and not to mention the fact that antibiotic resistance for many of those frontline antibiotics is almost at like 20%. So there's
Right.
not work, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And so we like the future of women's health really probably going to be looking at how you take microbes, probiotics, not necessarily antibiotics, and how those will be applied, and thought about for like these really big conditions in women's health, and all these disruptions to the vaginal microbiome. I mean, even menstruating, like even getting your period and having sex are like the two biggest disruptions to the vaginal microbiome. One, of course, happens every month. For some people, it happens very quickly.
Yeah.
But those,
Well,
so,
there's
so it
also
is,
like oral sex as well, right?
yes,
Saliva is a really big disruptor for the vagina, especially if, say, the guy's been drinking beer,
yep,
right?
or a
Or
number of other things, yes,
a number of others, but like there you go, you've got a mouthful of yeast and
yes,
you're
and
just supplying it.
that's right. uh, Fingers, and even same sex. So women, like they've done studies with women, who only have female partners, and also, there are other, just the exchange of that fluid, uh, very much, contributes to some of those factors for, causing dysbiosis in the vaginal microbiome. And we know how important, and it's also incredibly important for fertility, also, and preterm birth. We know has markers for. So
Right. Well, also when one of the most fascinating things about like the female body is that right before birth, the vagina actually populates itself with other microbes that help support
yeah,
the baby's microbiome as they pass through the vaginal canal. Lactus bialis, which is able to helps them to be able to break down the mother's milk, right? To digest milk, which is like incredible.
And there's microbes that have evolved to live on the nipple, actually, that also help digest lactose. So you just to see how like crazy our bodies are. And actually
Yeah.
they are, you were talking about breast milk earlier, about the third of the carbohydrates in breast milk are not digestible by the infant, and they are only microbes for the babies, like basically fertilizer for their microbe
Right. It's meant to just stay in there and like curate.
fertilize, feed them.
Right. Yeah. Fertilize. I love that. I love it. Well, let's talk about you as a female founder,
Oh yes, please.
which I really love. I mean, this is one of those things that I know it's sort of it's silly. It sounds like, oh, what, like of course there's female founders, of course women start companies,
Yeah.
but it is a term that's been kind of now being used a lot more in the last sort of 5 years or so because of the fact that women are just kicking ass, and they're being really we're sort of out in front with these companies, especially something that's like Seed, that's born out of really the experience of being a mother,
Mhm.
and bringing that forward as a woman, and realizing as a lover of science and all of what your passions, that it feels like this company could really only be founded by a woman. you know
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. No, I appreciate that. I mean, I do have a co-founder who is a guy.
of
Um,
course, I love Raj.
um, right. Yeah, no, it's an interest. I mean, look, it's a really interesting moment to be a woman in general. I think like so many things have obviously shifted culturally, hopefully for the better. And when the pendulum kind of when it swings and finds its way to the middle, of course, coming from Hollywood, it's been a huge calibration, right? Like a totally a very probably very different from when you first started.
Absolutely. Hmm.
As somebody who interned for Harvey.
Oh God.
It's a very new world. And so, yeah, but yes, I think like, I think sometimes there's two sides of it. There's a part of me that hates the term because they're like, you don't say male founder. I'm just
Mhm.
like I wake
Right.
up and I work really, really hard, and it not because I have a vagina.
Right.
And And so like part of me, and like when you go to like the conferences and they're like, we're having a female founder breakout session. And like I'm like, oh, I didn't know this was a Hasidic wedding. I think like I realized that. And so like a cynical part of me, which is I'm not sure if the designation is good in the long run, but
Right.
in this time where we need to inspire the next generation, the women who are like, oh, I could do that or I can do that. And you need to kind of call out and have the ways that you can like highlight and, give platforms to groups of women who are really paving the way in a lot of these fields. I think it serves a purpose like right
Mhm.
now. And I think you're right. Like, I think, sometimes I think women, there's a lot of stuff around like women's stuff where you're like, well, is it because I'm a woman? Is it because like, it can't be because I'm a woman, but I actually think like, look, I to your point, like I created a human being in my own body, and then it came out of me, and then I fed it with my own body. Like,
Yeah.
I have a very specific perspective, and probably am very well positioned to start this company. And
Mhm.
I think sometimes, so yes, I think like that biology, that experience combined with, of course, my other work experience, not just related to the fact that I'm a woman, um, absolutely contributed to kind of, and I think that's why Raj and I are really good complements to each other. And I think sometimes that experience and perspective absolutely does, is very much contributes to and is a complement to, just because the science says something a certain way, how people have to hear it, or how a woman, not that we are just for women, but just, how people will hear it is a big part of kind of calibrating. And so I definitely think it's like right time in your life. For me, it was post-human, having a human, um, and also just like existential crisis of like, how can I make an impact? And so, yeah, absolutely. I think it has a big difference. And one of my favorite things to do is, of course, mentor and help other female founders too. So
And what does that look like? What is the, as a mentor to other women, I imagine, like, what is the thing that you do that you say sort of most? What is the thing that you kind of give them that you feel that the first thing you say, here, this is what you should know if you're going to try to do this?
If you're asking me like the most common denominator, and I don't think it's, you know, necessarily just with women, although I do find that this is like the most common thing when I get asked for advice. There's an instinct. I think it comes up a lot around fundraising. Like I have found I'm about to say they, but I really, I don't generalizations, but the ability to give power away so easily, and that means is like the experience is dictated by like the other person, whether it's an investor, whether it's an employer you're having trouble with, whether it's a co-founder. I just find that sometimes women forget their agency, and they
Right.
little perspective shift of like, if you write the email that like, is that A, is it going to feel good? And B, like, should it be an email? But also like, what are you giving away by letting them make this process like uncomfortable? It's a bit of like scarcity. It's a bit of give your power away and like forget that like you can be in charge if you just change the words and the way the narrative is. So I would think it's like give your power away, change the story. Like the narrative is really, and you know this from.
Well, I mean, it's a funny thing because I don't think that we're so aware of the narrative. The narrative just, it's not a narrative. It's just, it exists as
Life, as your,
as if this is just what it is, you know?
yeah.
So it's sort of like when you give somebody the permission,
Yes,
you know, and or the insight that there's a narrative happening that has been written, but that it can be rewritten, and it's up to you to decide what the narrative is.
yes,
And you get to pick the characters, and you get to like decide
yeah.
what the storyline is, and you get to put it into, you get to tell it as you speak
Yes,
to every person that you walk into the door and sit in front of, or comes through your door and sits in front of you, that whatever you're saying to them is actually what they will then understand about what it is that your business is, who you are within the business, what you're capable of, that you're not like, that you're not just the narrative that
yeah.
exists in the world. You have your own.
Yes. Yeah. And that it can, and that it has also the permission to evolve, and
Yeah.
that
Of course, there's
that's
chapters. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's like, this is my first chapter, bitches. All right,
yeah,
wait till the second. You know what
exactly.
I mean? Like,
And chapter is about all the things I screwed up in chapter 1 and 2.
exactly. Oh my gosh, yes, for
Yeah.
sure.
And
Um,
a lot of the last piece of advice is a lot of times just it's kind of, it's like the book I've always wanted to write is called Save Draft, which is like not every, like you may need to press send on that, like send it to yourself, but it's like, does everybody need to know that?
yeah, that's really interesting. It's editing, like knowing
Yeah.
when to like edit yourself.
Yes.
That's really good. Save your draft. Go back and read it again. It's sort
Yeah.
of like, I mean, look at, I don't send out selfies
Yeah.
because you know what I mean? Like, I'm not into the picture of like, because then, but if I go back and look at it after, like a week later, I'm like, it's not so bad. Okay, I can. Or, oh, thank God
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah.
You
Thank
know what I mean? Like,
no.
save to the camera roll, you
Yeah.
know?
Breath and then perspective is kind of like the most often advice I think after the other ones.
That's so great. And so where do you, like, how do you, with building a company, there's, like you said, your next chapter is going to include what you learned in the first chapter, right?
Yes.
So there's always going to be a oh my God, my girlfriend's stuck in my backyard. she's like, will this gate open by itself? There's
Just don't type your gate code into the
I'm
comments.
not going to. I am not. What is it called? Motor. Um, I mean, somebody's got to go help her out. This is going to be really horrible. So basically, so you have the chapters, right? And you're going to look back and you're going to say, these are the things that I learned and what I messed up and what I'm going to do better this time, right? But there's so many ups and downs. And now Seed has been super, like, I think, I'm not going to say I don't know exactly all the challenges. There's
Yep.
so much, especially with science and sourcing.
Yes.
I'm sure because you guys get your microbes from all over the world,
Yes.
and you know you're also, this is an environmental product, right? It's a agricultural in a way, or not agriculture because you guys don't necessarily like grow it, you forage for it, or you have a source for it, but you know, you're dealing with the changing of the climate and how all the things of the possibilities where our planet's going, and whether or not you have enough of your resources, right? So
Yep.
you have all of those things, but it's hard. It's not easy.
Yes.
How do you keep going? What's your inspiration? Like, how do you stay in the game?
Oh,
What
that's,
pushes you forward?
I mean, there's a few things that, I mean, look, the most basic and most human one is that we impact people's health every day. So like, you know, at the very, 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 and health in general, you know, I think, you know, whether, you know, certainly I think we're just at the beginning of and scratch the surface of our like sustainability efforts. But, you know, I think in some ways, like the way that we impact people, like sometimes it is through our products, but to your point, like a lot of times it is actually just through our education and our content, and the fact that you can shift someone's perspective or change their mind or help them or ask a question that evolves their point of view about something. And I think that in itself is so impactful. I mean, look, every day I get to wake up and I move things like a urinary tract infection drug forward, which
Yeah.
has bacterial vaginosis drug, which like when that happens, like changes literally things.
That doesn't even exist right now. You're
Correct.
creating something that doesn't exist, and it's such a massive problem. God damn it. Every time I do these IGs at 5 o'clock, I forget to plug my damn phone in. And by the time it's like at the end of the IG, it's like, you're gonna die. Your
Um,
battery is
uh,
gonna
I,
die.
also, I don't want your friend to be stuck in your backyard.
No, she got out. She got out.
And I mean, so look, so very basically, like we have the opportunity for impact is so meaningful, so meaningful. Like from the people who write us every day saying that like your product, you know, anecdotally did like X, Y, and Z, changed my life. Like these are things that you're just, we created something and now this person live without it. That's extraordinary, you know. And as you know, like when you did your book, like, you know, when people live with conditions, symptoms, whatever, like those things are like, you know, so, and we hear that through customer care, through social media, and I think that for me always feels like is so meaningful. I think the second piece is that, and I think that for I can speak to me personally, it is that feeling that you nudge the world forward a little bit every day, like that, and even just that educational thing we've done on Instagram, like the impact, the response we get, the way we translate COVID information, like our commitment to how we even just translate science itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredibly inspiring. I learn something every single day. I get to create, and that's very rare, to
Yeah.
be able to like create while you're can currently like literally learning
Mm-hmm.
something day. And I think that and every day we wake up and there's new science to like look at.
Yeah.
um there's like, I think just from like a fulfillment perspective, humanistic side, the existential side, like that's all like incredibly meaningful. And the third thing is that I love working with my co-founder and I love our team. We just have like the most like I like people whenever I speak to recruits, like always like, well, I've really talked to a lot of people on your team now, and they're pretty amazing. I'm like, yeah, they're a pretty special group of human beings, and I think there's something that has just gelled in our little. We've been so
It's
protective
a,
of our
yeah.
ego. I really mean it. Like I like get excited by getting Slack messages. I love working at. I
That's
love
so
our. I, I truly I love who we get to do it with. And I think sometimes that of course is a big impact of the quality of the work that goes out in the world. So
But this is like a metaphor, right? For like what you guys are creating as a
yes.
product, right? Like the
Yeah.
fact that you're creating a mic, like a
Yeah.
well balanced
That,
microbiome.
yeah.
That of course you're going to have a group of people who coexist in a
Yeah.
you know a peaceful and productive way. You know,
And
it's so good.
from such diverse perspectives and backgrounds, which I think in different companies and,
Yeah,
like you have somebody, we have like, some people who come out of like working at like fashion tech and like LVMH companies working next to like Harvard immunologists. It's
right.
like it's
So great.
next to like our operations person who worked at SpaceX. It's such
Well,
a
this is another thing. So, like, team building is really important, right? As an entrepreneur, and that balance, that in this particular situation, curiosity is a really great quality for people to have, right? Because they're essentially they're marrying this one thing they know to apply it to something they
yeah,
know nothing about, but they're learning about it, and vice versa, right? So,
yes.
like in team building for your in building a company, especially a company from scratch, like just creating a brand that didn't exist and putting it together, what are the sort of things that you look for in bringing people on board as a part of your team?
Well, you hit the first one on the head, which is genuinely curiosity, because of course not everybody on our team comes from a scientific background, myself included. So it is like that certainly that curiosity. Um, th- this kind of quality of being able like deep what we call individual contribution, which me is a very, very Harvard Business Review way of saying get a lot of shit done
Right.
and do it very, very, very well.
Right, right, right.
Uh, that's like pretty much like really what we look for. In addition to the get a lot of shit done, the give a shit. So like the notion of accountability, of deep caring about what you put out in the world, but also for each other, and about our work, like the greater, bigger vision. So like the give a shit is like who are you as a human? How do you think about like what goes out, and how you can contribute? Um, and then there's kind of empathy, I think, is another big one because we do have such varied perspectives and backgrounds. So like really think, and I don't mean just empathy like as a throwaway word. Everyone, it's kind of like the new drinking game to say empathy like these days, but like empathy of like really what is somebody trying to say to you, and like can you really think about what they're trying to accomplish, even if they're not doing it exactly the way you would do it. And I think that's like a very important one because stylistically people are different. And then the last one is impeccability of your word, which means like just exceptional writing. Oh,
Yeah.
everyone like are exceptional communicators and writers.
Mm. Fantastic. That's such great advice and perspective. I'm really afraid my phone's going to die.
Oh, no, no.
But this is what I wanted everybody to know. So I think that there's so much to talk about in the microbiome and so much information. The science is so incredible.
Yeah.
And again, I really want to urge everybody to go to Seed on
Yes.
Instagram and look at all of all the information that's been uh, posted there by the Seed team of scientists, the leading scientists in the microbiome research and application of probiotics. And also, Seed is available by subscription. So you can't get it in a store. You have to go to the website,
Mhm.
seed.com,
Yeah.
to get to sign up to get a monthly supply that's delivered to you, that's mailed to you. So check out also seed.com to check out what the product there. And there's so many. I also love all the imagery of the microbes that you guys have. They're so beautiful. And there's a lot of science on the website as well. And I just wanted to say thank you for all of your knowledge, sharing it with us today about not just the microbiome, but also being an entrepreneur and all of what it takes to, you know, to be successful in building a brand. And I wanted to just say, you know, I have this glass of wine and I want to say cheers to our symbiotic relationship with microbes and how important it is, and the fact that wine doesn't exist without microbes,
That is
as it's a
correct.
fermentation process that relies heavily
Yep,
on microbes.
that is
Um,
correct.
and I just want to say thank you for doing the work that you're doing. I think it's absolutely incredible. And again, all of the information that you guys want to know about the microbes is on Instagram at Seed, and at seed.com for subscriptions to the product, as well as more science. And I just really appreciate you. Thank you.
So much for having me. I really appreciate it too.
Okay, great. Well, I hope to see you soon. I don't know when, but okay, bye. Cheers. Bye. Guys, thank you so much for being with me and Ara for the last hour. We really appreciate it. I brought this conversation to you guys because I really believe that the microbiome is the most important science that we have happening right now in our wellness space. And everything that that Seed is doing there above and beyond right now, doing the most comprehensive research on the microbiome, and they have so much information. And I just wanted to say thank you guys for everything. And I'm going to look at a couple of these questions because I looked at them earlier and there weren't a lot that were microbiome related. And there's a lot of greetings from England, from Greece, from Philippines. Hi, everybody. From Iran. There's a lot of greetings and questions of whether or not I'm going to do more films. I am not going to do more films at the moment. But I am doing a lot of Instagram lives because I think it's a lot of fun to get to connect with you guys and say hi. And I feel that, you know, everybody's out there in quarantine right now, which is really hard and discouraging, but it looks like, you know, we're getting the swing of it at least. Um, and all of the questions, you guys, that you have about the microbiome or about the product, you can will be answered on Instagram or on the website. So check out at Seed for Instagram and seed.com for the website. And it's bath time for me, for my baby. So I have to go. And I will see you guys. I'm going to be back up next week. And I'm actually going to have a special guest soon that I'm going to announce that I'm really excited about, that I think a lot of you are going to be excited about. I'm just teasing that. And I also have a little project that I'm going to be revealing in the next, by the beginning of June, that I'm very excited about sharing with all of you. So I guess I'll be talking to you on Instagram a bit more. Okay, everybody be well, and I will see you soon. Okay, thanks for spending your time with me. I appreciate it. Okay, bye.